Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I did not know Gordon personally. However, I did some research about his life and his accomplishments so I could speak about a person who lived such a rich and meaningful life. Gordon was passionate about politics from an early age. It eventually led and culminated in his political career when he sat here in this legislature for 12 years. But despite his passion for politics, I did hear that his jump into politics needed some convincing. It turns out that while he liked to help people and candidates win political races, he preferred not to run himself. However, the Conservative Party eventually convinced him to run for the very new riding of Armourdale. He became its first MPP in 1963, and he represented that riding until 1975. Gordon was passionate about Armourdale, portions of which riding are now incorporated into the riding of Willowdale, and hence I've been honored to do the tribute. Gordon listened to and he supported his constituents all the time, especially, as the member from the third party has just referenced, during the contentious construction of the enormous, at the time, 12-lane highway which cut through his riding. That was to become the Highway 401. In 1964, Gordon stood up for his constituents bravely against his own party and called for the protection of property rights for those impacted by the highway's construction. He was dubbed at the time the rebel with a cause. And with that passion, he advocated for sound barriers to be installed along the highway, separating it from the properties of those who called the area their homes. Speaker, those same barriers are still standing between Yonge Street and Bathurst along 401, and they have made life to this day better for all concerned. While on the backbenches at Queen's Park, Gordon sat on numerous committees, including the Standing Committee on Procedural Affairs, Private Bills, as well as Education and University Affairs. In particular, he was chairman of the Select Committee that introduced and modernized Ontario's Business Corporation Act. Under then Premier Bill Davis, Gordon was appointed to various cabinet positions, including Financial and Commercial Affairs, Transportation and Communications, and Labour. But Speaker, Gordon was more than a politician. He was a navigator with the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II. He practiced law for many years before entering politics. And humbly, he rode the subway back and forth to work every day. While working in the private sector, he oversaw the introduction, and I was quite taken by this because I am a devotee of ice cream. He introduced the Baskin and Robbins ice cream franchise to Canada. That is one of the many reasons why I will remember him. Gordon sat on multiple boards. He sat on many charities and nonprofit organizations, such as Community Living and Participation House, two nonprofits that work with people with physical and developmental disabilities. In 1971, he arranged for various people, a significant number, to pledge $30 a mile. That was a lot of money in 1971. And for that pledge, he ran 32 miles to raise funds for Cerebral Palsy Participation House. And well into his 90s, his love of Canada led him to start Happiness Is Incorporated. It's a Canadian-made clothing company that celebrates the happy moments of being a Canadian. About the starting of Happiness Is, Gordon said, and I quote, "I believe we all have moments of happiness that we seek to and should appreciate with others." These are just a few of his many accomplishments. But Speaker, there's a very personal story that I want to share with the House. It was a story about his dedication to 95 of his classmates from his former high school, Vaughan Road Collegiate. It's now known as Vaughan Road Academy. Those 95 classmates of his died in World War II. And on a visit to his high school, Gordon was shocked one day to see all 95 names on a memorial plaque in the school. It moved him, and he said, quote, "I vowed that they would never be forgotten." He made that comment in a publication in 2016, a magazine called Informer Magazine. It's published by the Ontario Association of Former Parliamentarians, which he played an active role over the years. Years later, a group of business associates wanted to establish a scholarship in his name at Vaughan Road Collegiate. And Gordon said yes, he would do that. He would agree to that. On one condition, he insisted that henceforward into perpetuity, the names of those 95 classmates had to be printed on every graduation ceremony pamphlet. And that remains in effect today. If you go to the graduation ceremonies this June, those 95 names will be there. While I might not have known, I did not know Gordon personally, but after reading about his passion and integrity, I wish that I personally would have had the chance to know him, to have a conversation with him, to seek his advice also. Gordon served his country, his friends, his province, and his constituents. His was an exemplary life. Thank you, Speaker.